I feel awesome that I understood you, and I feel really bad that you've been through so much. At the end, the way I decided that the best way to start off listening to the album and talking about it is by reading a more recent interview that came out with Hypebeast. You guys maybe have seen this interview already, and if not, I'm gonna read it to you because I read that interview and all of like my thoughts and interpretations and perspectives on the album and like what I had thought that he was getting at and what I thought he was going through were confirmed by this interview because he just literally said it out loud. And I'm like, I feel awesome that I understood you, and I feel really bad that you've been through so much because I don't think it's deserved. And I think he's amazing. I think, and we all do. Like, to us, it's so obvious how amazing he is and how much of a trailblazer he is, and the fact that he's gone through so much shit for being different pisses me off. But yeah, so I was gonna read through that, and then we can start having some fun. RM of BTS wants to be more like a wildflower. The South Korean rapper discusses his debut album Indigo, the struggles he overcame, and more. On December 2nd, 2022, Kim Namjoon, the 28-year-old leader of the South Korean boy band BTS, who goes by the moniker RM, released his debut solo album Indigo. For RM, who started putting out his music on online hip-hop communities under the pseudonym of Runch Rhonda in 2007, this album has taken 15 years to materialize. In that time, he changed his name twice, from Runch Rhonda, I forget, what was the meaning behind that again, to Rap Monster before settling with RM. Made his debut with BTS as the leader of the boy band, achieved worldwide superstardom, and rewrote K-pop history. He is now back as a solo artist with an album that commemorates the end of his 20s. In Korea, newborns are considered 1 year old at birth and turn a year old on January 1st rather than on their birthday. RM would be turning 30 in Korean age on January 1st, 2023 at the time of this interview, which has been edited to use his Korean age throughout for clarity. By the way, this is, of all the interviews I read with you guys on stream, this is the only one that actually clarified that there's a difference between Korean age and international age, which immediately made me respect this article more. As an artist who has experienced drastic changes throughout his teens and 20s due to the meteoric rise of BTS, RM has struggled underneath the glamour of success to find and establish his own identity and artistic purpose. After encountering the works and philosophy of artist Yoon Hyung-kun, RM believes he has found his answer. Yoon, who was a leading figure in the Dansaikwa, monochromatic abstract painting movement, emphasized that artists must strive to establish their own humanity before pursuing art, because their humanity inevitably becomes reflected in their art. Having adopted Yoon's philosophy as the underlying ethos that guides his art and life, RM has attempted to establish his own humanity in Indigo by documenting his life in all of its imperfections and complexities. It documents his life as RM and Kim Namjoon at age 29 and offers a glimpse into how he wants to conduct his life in his days ahead. By the way, like, he said in his Weverse Behind film video that like this documents his last 4 years. So that would make it like 2019, 20, 21, and 22. Which I was like, it's very interesting that you keep emphasizing that. Because to me, 2019 was the year kind of where like they were at their peak, where like they just skyrocketed from 2017 into 2018. 2018, they just, went up and up. And then 2019, they went even fucking higher. Like, that's when we were finally making their albums debut at number 1 on Billboard Hot 200. And it was just like success after success, and like they were just explosively growing. So 2019 and then 2020, when all of that just like came to a screeching halt. And then 2021, which was like the year of trying to find a reason to live in a global pandemic. And then 2022, which is when they came back into the world, had concerts, and were experimenting with pop music and kind of really going in directions that they hadn't before. And we can talk about this more when we actually start looking at the album. But I was just thinking about how it's interesting that like he chose specifically to say that he's documenting the last 4 years. Quote, "It feels like I've finally done my homework that I've been putting off for a long time," he said, with a relieved look on his face, when we met days after the release of his album. He explained that the album, which is intended to capture a new side of RM that fans have not seen from him as a member of BTS, is also a piece of work that had to be made to maintain his sense of self. What was it that necessitated RM, or Kim Namjoon, to create Indigo? In our conversation, we discussed his album, what in his past tormented him, how he overcame this past, and how he plans to move forward. Question: how do you feel after releasing your first solo album? Namjoon: I feel relieved. As an artist, I think there is a tremendous difference between having a studio album and having only singles and doing features. It feels like I've finally done my homework that I've been putting off for a long time. It also feels like an initial public offering of the RM brand. I'm very proud that I got to leave behind a record of my trials and tribulations at the end of my 20s. Translation: he feels like he's finally confident in his identity and he's proud that he's finally gotten to share it with the world. That's how I interpret that. Question: now that the album's out, what have you been doing? Working on this album set something off in me. I actually started working on new materials 1 or 2 weeks before releasing this album. Putting Indigo, I wonder if that was his collab with Pharrell Williams. Putting Indigo together was hard work, so I wanted to take some time off after releasing it. But once I released it, I found new inspirations and felt the desire to work on new music. I realized that I'm really not the type to take breaks. He hasn't realized that after all the years that they've been, going like crazy. Any hints on what you've been working on? I'm trying to create something that is much lighter and more playful. Indigo was a serious endeavor that I contemplated for 4 years. It carried a special weight because it was meant to showcase me as an artist to the world for the first time. My plan is to release something more easygoing next. It will most likely be a single or an EP. Yeah, I really think whatever he's trying to collab on with Pharrell Williams is on there. Are there any specific reasons why it took some time for you to release your first solo album? It wasn't easy to prepare solo material because I was dedicating most of my energy to BTS. But I did want to release the studio album as a solo artist at some point. I don't think it's healthy to have your entire identity wrapped up in a group. This group, of course, is a crucial part of my life, but it does not entirely represent who I am as a person, and I had to release this album to stand on my own as an individual. I understand that you drew inspiration from art when making this album. Can you tell us a little more on the kind of art that inspired you? I developed a serious interest in art and started going to exhibits around late 2018. I then started working on this album in 2019, so these two things coincided. It became very natural to connect art and music for me. I came across many different artists at the time, but there was one artist in particular that I really wanted to model my life after, and that was Yoon Hyun-kun. You know what? I want to hear how you pronounce his name so I can stop fucking it up, because I'm so worried that I keep fucking it up. Yoon, alright, I got that much. Yeah, I'm not gonna find anything that's gonna help me. Damn it. If any of you know if I'm actually mispronouncing Yoon Hyun-kun's name, please let me know. I will happily correct, I just don't know to what. What aspect of Yoon Hyun-kun's life and artwork inspired you the most? By the time he was around my age, he had already experienced the Japanese colonial era, the Korean War, and the dictatorship. He had a gun pointed at his head, was imprisoned, and experienced multiple brushes with death. It's a life that I can't even imagine. Despite the circumstances, however, he was a sincere and pure individual. You be a human till the death of you, as Erykah Badu sang in Yoon, was a line that embodied his attitude towards life. That's what gives resonance to his belief that you should strive to establish their own humanity before pursuing art. Question: what does you be a human till the death of you mean to you? Protecting your humanhood is an intense battle. It involves a lifelong struggle with your conscience. It also involves overcoming injustice, desire, and anxiety within yourself. In Yoon's time, Korea was a poorer country than it is now. There were many things that weren't right, as it was an era that threatened your humanhood. force people to compromise with injustice, and betray one another. But Yoon never blamed his time or his fate. Instead, he maintained his integrity as an artist. I don't dare to walk in his shoes, but I believe that I would be a better person by keeping his teachings close to my heart. The influence of the song's namesake felt very apparent because Yoon, to me, felt like a commentary on the entire album. That's very accurate. This album is structured to start off with a hint. Yoon, along with the artwork used on the album's cover, acts as a commentary on how to understand the entire album. It explains what each track means, how the stories were compiled, why I created this album, and how I want to live. This track also provides the framework in which the listener can understand the other songs on the album and the album in its entirety. Yeah, I'll explain my interpretation of this when we start going over the songs, but I do want to know what your interpretation of this is. What is the hint? What are we being told by the fact that the song Yoon comes first? If you guys want to give me your thoughts now. Question. Can you pick a line from Yoon that permeates the entire album? Fuck the trendsetter. That is a potent line. It appears again as trendsetter, I'm a friend, better, in Still Life. To be clear, I have nothing against trendsetters. The celebrities that set trends are admirable in their own ways, but I have no desire to assume that position. I've seen so many people flash and disappear over the years, and that's not what I want for my team or myself. Question. That seems consistent with the theme of Wildflower, the desire to remain an eternally lasting wildflower, rather than a fireworks disappearing in the sky. I once aspired to be more like fireworks, someone who comes in with a bang and disappears into the night. But after encountering Yeon Hyung-kun's work, I began to reflect on why I started making music in the first place. What I realized is that I started off wanting to write poetry. Even when I started rapping, I approached it as rhythm and poetry. So I decided to return to where I started and to become an artist who, like a wildflower, stays rooted to my true self. Interviewer, I find it interesting that as a result of you trying to become more like a wildflower, the album ended up being an amalgamation of various genres. Namjoon. I've heard many people say that the album is lacking consistency for that reason. Alright, who the fuck has been saying it lacks consistency? Because I've only heard positive things across the board and that he's like demonstrated his ability to cross genre. I've not seen anyone say lacking consistency. Who is it and who do I need to beat up? I can't deny that in terms of genre, but the lack of consistency in itself is consistent with the theme of this album. Yes, agree on that. On the cover art, you can see Yoon Hyung-kun's Blue hanging on the wall. Yoon's signature pieces usually involve earthy colors, but this piece is from a prior era. I see myself as an artist within their Blue period, since I'm still trying to find my signature sound. In that sense, I believe that Indigo is my attempt to document Kim Namjoon at 29, in love with all types of music and searching within to find something of his own. If this album is your attempt to document, I find it ironic that the first song that you began working on was Forgetful. It was the result of me being forgetful that inspired me to start documenting. In the television show, The Dictionary of Useless Knowledge, writer Kim Young-ha once mentioned that the reason why people carve "I heart so-and-so" or "so-and-so was here" on rocks at tourist sites is because emotions like love are so fragile and our recollections are so volatile. That is the reason why I wrote Forgetful. If the purpose was to document before losing your recollection, did you have any idea that this album would turn out like this? I've read many interviews with artists since I got into art. Many artists say that they have no idea how the piece will turn out until the moment the brush hits the canvas. They say that creation is driven by your subconscious, memory, and inspiration, and not necessarily by your intention. I related to that idea when I'm making this album. The song focuses on one being human first, so the rest of the album is June digging deep within and facing his human side, being vulnerable. Yeah, I like that. I agree with that. Perhaps we should be looking for consistency in RM as a person, rather than in genres of music. Indigo is RM. If you look at it that way, you will see the connection between the songs. After all, I am the result of the music that I listened to during my teenage years. I once read a phrase that went like, "Life as an adult is nothing but a tribute to your childhood dreams." Nothing seems truer than this statement. Hip-hop accounts for the largest portion of my musical interest growing up, but I can't leave out rock music and Korean indie music. When I was preparing for this album, I realized that Nas, Epic High, and Dynamic Duo were highly influential to me, but artists like Radiohead, Portishead, and Bon Iver were just as influential. It's only natural that all those influences are captured in this album. Is that why you changed your moniker to RM? In a way, yes. As a child, I thought I was only into rap. I thought the most important thing was to have monstrous rapping skills, and that's how that childish name came about. But I realized that rap was not the only thing I was interested in. If you have rap in your name, it creates a restriction on what genre you can pursue. Regardless of what others may think, I became freer after changing my moniker. It allowed me to explore freely in this album. And yet, hip-hop is still a large part of this album. Of course, nothing changes the fact that I love hip-hop and that I started music by rapping. There's no denying that my musical root is 90s hip-hop, but there is a difference between making a hip-hop album and making an RM album that incorporates hip-hop. True. I'm not necessarily trying to stick with hip-hop as my genre of choice. It would be more correct to say that, as a result of trying to capture my essence as a musician, hip-hop ended up accounting for a large portion of this album. It seems that the album adheres to the idea that art should stay faithful to the artist rather than to the genre. I don't think this idea of purity in regards to genre of music has much significance anymore. This right here. I was more focused on how well my music reflected my life rather than how consistent it sounded. I made no compromises, which I am very proud of. Times change, and trends change, but this album will always be special in that it captured RM at the age of 29. This section, all about genre. Oh my god, okay. Interviewer. This obsession with capturing your essence as a person is also very apparent in your choice of features. I only recruited artists who had a profound influence on my story and my life. I considered inviting certain artists just for the hype, but it didn't feel honest for this album. I wanted this album to be an honest documentation of my life. As a result, my childhood heroes and heroines became included in the featuring lineup. I'm proud that I got the chance, as I mentioned earlier, to pay tributes to my childhood dreams. By the way, this sounds amazing. Like, being in a position where you can say, I want to make music that documents me and my life and all the things I went through. And I want the people featuring on them to be all of the, like, artists that were my musical heroes growing up. All the people that helped me through hard times and all of that. Like, what an incredible musical archive. And I like, it feels like the musical version of a photo album. Of like, here was my life at this time. Here's everything that means so much to me right here. How fucking cool is that? Interviewer. Maybe that's why the theme of Wildflower is not only felt in the tracks, but also with the artists featured. That wasn't on my mind when I was putting this album together, but I think it ended up like that. The artists featured on this album, including Yoon Hyung-kun, are not the type of people who will flash and disappear. Some of them did have their firework moments, like Cherry Filter had Romantic Cat, and Epic High had Fly and Peace Day. But these artists did not stop there. They end up finding their own territories and extending their roots, just like Wildflowers. Does anyone know what this is? Photo by RM, and it's like a screenshot of his text with Paul Blanco, who's on Closer. I don't speak Korean, but it's like, blah, 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 Paul Blanco going, I appreciate you, Namjoon saying stuff back, and them just like hearting each other's comments. And then Paul Blanco at the end of his text just saying, I ride for you, bro. And then blah, a bunch of more Korean, and then at the end, Paul Blanco going, bro, don't worry. Does anybody know what they're saying? He asked Paul to feature through Instagram DM. Oh, is that what this is? This is so cute. Can we see what date it was? I think it says June 30th. It was the first time Namjoon had DM'd anyone on Instagram. Really? Oh, that's so cute. A fun fact, like, if you follow any other big accounts on Instagram, like, I follow this other artist I really like, they don't have their DMs closed to me. Like, sometimes when I'm scrolling and, like, I want to send funny memes I've sent to people, I have to make sure I don't accidentally send them to that artist, because the artist will be like, well, what the fuck is Yami doing? Block. But BTS don't have their DMs open. Is that how that works? Or, like, can you only open them to, like, verified accounts? I don't know. I've always thought that. I was like, why is it that some, like, random, like, big artists have their DMs open, Even though like they're not following me, I'm the one following them, and I could actually literally DM them with like a funny cat meme that I found. But BTS is like blocked off. Like, good for them, or else we'd all be messaging them on there, like being like, oh, hello, Namjoon, we can finally talk alone. I think Suga had us open for a while. Really? Damn, I missed my chance to shoot my shot. They'd get so much crap. They would. They really would. Again, I also don't blame them. Like, good for them. But I'm confused about why other artists don't have that. Like, the artist that I follow, who does not follow me, who I could send a cat meme to if I really wanted to, is pretty big. I don't understand. People are funny. Question. In that regard, everyone says they're closed, but Namjoon's is open to me. Oh my god. Hold on. Maybe you're in his special circle. I feel like if that happens, it's really hard to be like, I'm not going to message them. I'm not going to be a creep. They won't take me seriously if I message them. They'll just be like, oh, this is a crazy fan. But also, maybe you should shoot your shot, Jen. I don't know. All right, hold on. Let me see if I wanted to start a message to Namjoon. Okay, well, there's like 80 million fake accounts. Can I DM you? No. Jen, you're really lucky. Maybe you should message them. I don't know. Maybe you should. I don't know. That's up to you. In that regard, would artists like Kim Sewol, Paul Blanco, and Cold be colleagues who are in the same phase as you? Like me, they are all young artists who are constantly trying new things. For example, Sewol's second and third albums are very different in terms of style. That is why her voice from 3 years ago, which is closer to the sound from her second album, was featured in Forgetful. And people who know her from her third album may be surprised by her sound in this song. I felt that Cold, Paul Blanco, and Sewol are also going through their blue period, just like me. And there was a lot that I could relate to with them. Jen says, I actually commented on a couple of his stories, but it wasn't anything cringy. It was about his album. You can comment on his stories! Good for you for keeping it professional. I want to talk to them. Interviewer. Perhaps one of the artists in the album who already went through that period and has established her own roots as a wildflower may be Erykah Badu, who was featured on Yoon. I think of Erykah Badu as a queen of her own territory. Regardless of how trends change, she holds down her kingdom. She, along with D'Angelo, pioneered neo-soul and built an empire that is going to last forever. Like the artists that have their names etched in art history, Erykah Badu's name will forever go down in musical history. Would you say that Park Ji-yoon, who features on number 2, is someone who has proven that there is life after the fireworks? Many people still remember her as the singer from the coming-of-age ceremony days, but she put out 9 studio albums and has even released a new single recently. In my opinion, the music that she put out since Flower, again for the first time, in 2009, is more true to her real character. She is someone who experienced success at an even younger age than me, found her own colors, actively released music, and even got married and had kids. It's very convincing and comforting to hear, "Don't look back anymore," from the person who has lived to testify that there is, in fact, life after fireworks. I think this is really important. Like, BTS has talked time and time again, and so have we as a fandom, how that they have always lacked for mentors and lacked for people who could help reassure them and help them, give them wisdom for the future, that they felt lost, that like they were climbing the mountain alone. And I feel like all of the collabs that Namjoon did was with this like community of people he's found that can help mentor and support and like reassure him that, you know, in his musical journey. And I think what's really important, and I'll talk about it more when we get to her song, is that like the part where he emphasizes here, and he's also emphasized it in his like Weverse film, is that like she got married and had kids and is still making music, because Park Ji-yoon was like she was an idol, right? Like she was one of those people who was like who's not supposed to like who has to pretend to be single in order to maintain her appeal to the public. So the fact that she found someone as a celebrity, got married, had kids, and is still making music and is still a successful musician speaks a lot to Namjoon and to like what he maybe could have himself. Question. You say that you were comforted by the line, "Don't look back anymore." Does that mean you had some regrets about the road not traveled? This is the most difficult question to answer truthfully. Recently, I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, really great movie. That film visualized many of the ideas that I've had, such as the idea about multiple versions of myself existing based on small choices I made. I often think about what it would have been like if I had continued my studies or become something other than a musician. To be honest, one decision that I had often thought about was my choice to become a part of a boy band. In the late 2000s, musicians like Zico, Changmo, and Giri Boy were the people that I started out with. In my journey with BTS, I drifted further and further away from that world and was tormented by the thought that the people I liked and the people who enjoyed the same music as I did not have any love for me. I often wondered whether I made the right decision by joining a boy band. At the time, BTS was treated like a complete outsider in the Korean hip-hop community. That stressed me out. I was constantly thinking about how I would be able to overcome that perception and how to define music or hip-hop. When you say that you were not looking back, could I assume that you found your answer? I've heard that next year is the 50th anniversary since the birth of hip-hop. In those years, hip-hop did not remain as a monolith since its range and boundaries are constantly changing. When I was struggling, artists like Drake, Lil Uzi Vert, and Post Malone found mainstream success. These artists transformed, blended, and dismantled the genre. It became very apparent that this purity, in regards to genre, no longer meant anything. Oh! I'm sure most, if not all of you, I don't know how long you guys have been ARMY, but have seen the video with Freebie, all the backlash, all the ARMY videos on YouTube that document the backlash that Namjoon and Yoongi got for joining an idol group when they had been part of the hip-hop scene, and how the Korean hip-hop community basically turned their backs on them and just accused them of selling out and accused them of not being true to the genre, man. Like, you gotta focus on being pure. Oh, you're trying to become an idol and like support yourself and make money. Well, then you can't be a true hip-hop artist because it's about being real and poor and suffering. So much bullshit. And like from the sidelines, I can it's so obvious to us that it's bullshit. But when you're in that, when all of this vitriol and hate and all the people who used to support you and be your peers and be your mentors have turned their backs on you, to feel like he struggled for so long, Namjoon did, with like being part of BTS. Like his first mixtape is all about that, is him being so angry about it. And now, all these years later, which by the way, I also found really funny that the Korean hip hop community was so focused on purity, when the fact is like hip hop was invented in America by African Americans, by the Black community, and they were already taking something that wasn't theirs and making it theirs, and transforming it into something that could be in Korean, that was music, that was hip hop music that was customized for Koreans. Like, you're already transforming the genre. What is this bullshit about purity? And so here Namjoon's like, hey, while everybody was bitching about that, you had all these other artists become mainstream popular artists, which you told me was something that meant I wasn't a real hip hop artist. Well, look at these guys. And they literally transformed the genre, and now it's completely fine to, like, there is no purity of hip hop anymore. No one has that discussion. There is no backlash and that. So like what the fuck was that bullshit? I'm so angry. It pisses me off so much. I am like really bitter about how much Namjoon has suffered over all of this, because though that community did not have a right to do this to him, Namjoon didn't do anything wrong. Namjoon was a fucking pioneer. He was a trailblazer, and he deserved to be recognized as such for that from the beginning. Luckily that's what ARMY was for, and from the beginning ARMY recognized him as the trailblazer and the genius that he is, even if those fuckers in that underground Korean hip-hop community couldn't, because they were so focused on the purity of the genre. There are, of course, some purists in genres like jazz and hip-hop, but after having been on both sides of the fence, I now realize that I don't need to put myself in those boundaries. I really felt that after meeting Nas, Drake, and Pharrell in America. Like, look at him. He's just like, you fuckers were focused on, like, I can just like see, like, I can feel the like the vindication and bitterness in Namjoon reading this of like, he's like, I met these legends and they didn't give a fuck about purity of genre. And you who are focused on purity of genre, all the way here in Korea, who have never met them, you can go cry. Namjoon says, it no longer feels important for me to prove whether I am hip-hop or not, or whether I am faithful to the rules of the genre or not. Good music is good music. Boundaries of hip-hop have really broadened for Korean artists these days. I feel that as well. Now it's natural for rappers to sing and for singers to rap. Meanwhile, K-pop artists are collaborating with hip-hop artists all the time. Many artists now identify as both. Rappers in the Korean hip-hop scene who I thought were on a path different than mine are now appearing on television shows even more than me. That was another criticism they got, that like, oh, hip-hop is supposed to be underground, not mainstream. Like, you guys go on TV too much and like promote your music. Like, you're not real hip-hop artists. And now Namjoon's like, those artists are on TV promoting their own music more than I am. The fuck? Me too, I get so worked up over it. Wish I could give them a piece of my mind. I know! I fucking know! Same! Namjoon. As the boundaries continued to blur, I realized that I was suffering from things that would become meaningless in time. Amen. That gave me comfort. Would you say that this album is the result of you looking forward after deciding to no longer look back? In fiction, heroes eventually accept their fate and resolve the conflict by finding their unique strengths. I decided to stop thinking about the road not traveled and started thinking more on the inevitability of what I've become, as well as accepting the best version of myself, which allowed me to create this album where I am completely true to myself. You make frequent use of contrast throughout the album, whether it's fireworks and wildflowers or highways and trails. Was that a part of your attempt to symbolize the difference between RM of BTS and Kim Namjoon? Namjoon is having the last laugh. Nas, Pharrell, all these other rappers could only dream of being in his position. I fucking know, right? Namjoon is having the last laugh, and he's also the one who's gonna have the lasting impact. He is the eternal artist that will not be forgotten. All these pure underground hip-hop artists can just go fuck themselves. Honestly, Jesus fucking Christ. I've been thinking a lot about those two ideas. My record label and my bandmates may not feel comfortable being compared to fireworks, but I am not trying to downplay our value by describing my work with BTS as being comparable to fireworks. I'm a member of BTS. I have no desire to downplay what we do. I'm extremely thankful for everything I gained and experienced as a part of this team. I would not have been able to work on my solo album in this privileged environment and materialize everything that I had planned if it weren't for my activities with BTS. But I am trying to remain vigilant about not having my entire identity wrapped around BTS. That is a very diplomatic answer, because what I get from the album and what he's saying here is that, like, being a part of BTS requires so much work that it's like setting yourself on fire. And it's the same idea that kind of Hobie talks about in Arson, that like he worked so hard being part of BTS that everything has been set on fire and like it burns you up from the inside. It's really hard to do that, and also things spiral out of your control when you get that big. Throughout the album, Namjoon was saying like, I can't live like that. I have to be a human-sized person. I have to live humbly. I have to live like a wildflower, rooted to the ground, nothing special, just being me. And here he's saying like I'm not trying to say that being a wildflower is better than being a firework, being part of BTS. But I'm saying that I've been one, I would like to be the other. His music, art, talent speaks for itself, and with it, he's carved a name for himself. He's gained respect from those who matter to him. Yep, agree. I can also agree with like him being like, my record label and bandmates may not feel comfortable being compared to fireworks because they may say like, oh, it's not the same to me. But Namjoon is saying like, this has been my experience, and I am telling you about my experience and what I want, and I have to remain vigilant about not holding all of that back anymore. I have to express myself to the extent that I am able as an individual, or else I can't go on like this. Question: have you found a way to ease the tension between those two identities? I don't have the answer, but I'm experimenting with how those two can coexist. The most important content I prepared for Indigo was the 2 live shows, live in Seoul and live in New York. The show in Seoul was held at the Rolling Hall, which is a symbolic venue in Hongdae for the underground scene. The show in New York was held at Dia Beacon, which is a large art museum that I rented out. Just casually renting out a whole art museum. I dressed casually for the show in Rolling Stone and had fun with 200 or so people in the audience, as if I was playing a club show. In contrast, we filmed the Dia Beacon show with me putting on different looks from the latest Bodega Veneta collection for each location, casually showing off my fashion sense. Maybe this is a greedy experiment, but I'm trying to be RM as Kim Namjoon as well as RM as a member of BTS. But don't you think that not everyone has the ability to be that greedy or the ability to materialize it? That's what I thought as well. I believe that there are things in the world that only I can do right now. That kind of thinking is what motivates artists to continue living as artists. Some may think that I am too greedy and that I am not consistent enough, but these are things that only I can do at this moment. In time, I believe these experiments will be reevaluated. I didn't understand this question. I was just like, are you trying to make him be humble? Like, don't you recognize that you're special, that you can do this? And Namjoon's like, yeah, I'm doing my best. Why couldn't I be there at Rolling Hall? I know. I still haven't seen it because I was waiting for them to add subtitles to it because I wanted to understand it the first time I watched. To be fair, I was kind of confused about why they didn't have subtitles on it already. Like, they posted it and then they said like subtitles were coming. And I'm like, how long does it take you to add subtitles? We have fan translators who do it really quickly. Probably to the detriment of their health, but they can do it pretty quickly. So, hi, what's your excuse? Come on, include me. Let me in. You are almost 30 years old. What kind of experiment would you be doing in your 30s? As a 15-year-old under the moniker Runch Rhonda, I was playing shows at a small venue in Hongdae called Geek, while dreaming about playing at Rolling Hall. As RM of BTS, I'm now on the Billboard charts. I think about how I could make the two coexist and how I could make art and music coexist in my career as well. I also ponder a lot on how my identity as a person born and raised in Korea and my identity as someone who found success in America could coexist. The issue of coexistence is my biggest interest, and I believe I would be experimenting and challenging myself to address that issue even more so in my 30s. Translation: I can't stay on this hype train and keep hiding who I am. I have to find a way to express myself in a way that will still make me relatable to people and successful and all of that. We're gonna fucking have to figure out how to do this going forward. It was incredible. He did a phenomenal job, sounded like the CD, and he was so comfortable and having fun. Oh, I'm so excited. I hope they've added subtitles. I wanna watch it this weekend. Make it my Christmas gift to myself. It sounds like something that would require a lot of courage and effort. I met and spoke with Pharrell Williams not too long ago, which actually gave me a lot of courage. He is now, in Korean age, 50 years old and has been making music for 30 years. He also got a lot of love for songs like Happy, which have been mainstream successes, yet he still churns out edgy tracks like Cash In, Cash Out. This is exactly where I think, and we've talked about this before, that BTS's release of Dynamite, Butter, and Permission to Dance was like a shock of success and veered them in a completely different direction than what they were doing and made them really question what the path forward was supposed to look like after that, because it was so different from where they had started. And I think for someone like Namjoon, who had started in hip-hop, experienced all that criticism and vitriol and rejection from the hip-hop community for selling out and becoming an idol, and then becoming someone who, like, a group that produces even more poppy songs, and then being like, did I sell out? And then seeing Pharrell Williams, who's like, you can be both. You can be everything. There is no boundary. There is no rules. Do whatever you fucking want. It was so reassuring. I think that was really reassuring for him. And then Pharrell also released his own clothing line, Human Race, with Adidas as he continues to prove himself to be a fashion icon. I've also heard that he's a real family man and that he is a very humble and polite person. Seeing all these qualities coexist in this man proved to me that it could be done. Yeah, he's like, look, someone else is doing it. That's what I want to be. Those are all the things I want to be able to focus on. Yes, boom, good, I got this. It made me ponder that, regardless of what other people think about how difficult or improbable it may be, I could still strive to become someone like him. If that man could be that successful in 4 or 5 areas over 30 years, perhaps I could simultaneously pursue 2 or 3 interests as well. I think I could continue to mature as a person, succeed as both a solo artist and as a part of a collective, while conducting projects for Korean art. It may not be easy, but it doesn't seem impossible. Yeah, that really feels like what he wants to do. He wants to make solo music. He wants to make music as a group with BTS. He wants to focus on, like, projects to promote Korean art. Like, yeah, that's so him. Do it! And this album is the beginning of the experiment. It's so strange for me that BTS always doubt what they can, how far they can branch out and explore. Because I'm like, whatever the fuck you want to try, I'll be here to support you. It's really not that difficult of a decision for me. And I'm pretty sure a significant portion of our fandom agrees. There's a shit ton of armies who are, fans who are here for BTS, not here for the drama. And we're like, sure, okay, cool, something new, exciting, yeah, let's switch it up. Okay, what are we learning about today? What are we exploring? Teach us. And every time BTS are like, I'm so surprised that ARMY has continued to support me and gone with me in this new direction. And we're like, the minute you said we were turning the car into a new direction, all of us buckled in. We were like, okay, sounds exciting. There never is a question of like, oh, maybe I'll leave. Like, this isn't what I wanted. Like, I love that they keep trying new things. I love that they go experiment and do different things. Do I have the capacity to like watch all of it or participate in all of it? No, but I still support it. I still buy everything I can within reason. I'm here for anything he wants to do. I hope he knows we support him 100%. I know, it's like, it's so obvious. I'm like, yes, the support is here. Do whatever you fucking want, guys. Like, we're here. It's really that simple. There may be a lot of people whispering in their ear doubts. Yeah. And I mean, he talks about, like, literally he has lyrics in Yoon about that. So we can circle back to this in just a sec. I think that's the beauty of the relationship we have with BTS. Like, it's not, and I'm excluding the crazies in this fandom, but it's like, it's not one of, I demand you do XYZ for me because I give you money. Therefore, you are my dancing monkey. You have to do things a certain way. You have to release music a certain way. I demand blah, blah, blah. I long ago acknowledged that, like, they're going to do shit that's going to be all over the place. Their company's going to release things in a bajillion different ways. Like, some of it will be will be exactly my taste. Some of it won't be. I'll do my best to support everything that I care about, and, like, I will be a reasonable person about it. And I feel like that's the majority of our opinions on this. We're friends. Yeah. That's what makes this, like, being a part of this fandom more fun, because there's always something new, because we treat them as friends. Like, okay, what else are they getting up to today? That's what makes it fun to be here. Even if I think that the Twitter environment is, like, a little bit of a hellhole right now for a variety of reasons. I don't know, that's a different can of worms we can open later. But yeah, anyway, we're all on the same page. This album is the beginning of the experiment. That's correct. I'm okay if this album does not get a lot of immediate attention. I welcome mixed reactions to this album, and I believe that the things that people now consider as strange or inconsistent will be reevaluated in a couple years' time. I consider everything perfect. There is nothing strange or inconsistent about it. Shut your beautiful mouth, Namjoon. As the notion of locality and nationality become increasingly less significant, true. I also hope that my album will be considered as one of many pioneering projects that challenged boundaries. If I succeed in my future experiments, this album will go down as a milestone to prove that RM and Kim Namjoon made multiple identities coexist. We're not going anywhere. We'll prove it again and again. Yes, they work so hard. They really fucking do. Man, I love them.